Night descends over the vineyards of California and Bordeaux. Instead of silence, the fields come alive with a strange metallic hum. Rows of vines shimmer under powerful floodlights as mechanical harvesters glide between them, massive vibrating machines, swallowing clusters of ripe grapes in the dark. Yet just across the ocean in the ancient hills of Tuscany and the steep terraces of the Mosel River hands still reach out one by one, twisting each grape from the stem by touch and instinct. Every year, humanity harvests more than 70 million tons of grapes across the planet, enough to fill every wine glass in Europe 100 times over. But in this global dance between steel and skin speed and soul, a question rises. Does technology enrich the taste of our wines, or does it erase the very heritage that made them timeless? Tonight we'll step into both worlds, the relentless precision of the machines and the quiet devotion of the hands, to discover which future will define the vineyards we love. It begins before dawn, when the world is still half asleep. In the vineyards of California's Napa Valley, a cold mist drifts low between the rows. From a distance, the lights of the harvesters look like slow-moving stars sliding across the earth. The machines hum with a rhythmic pulse, arms vibrating, conveyors whirring as they strip the vines clean in the darkness. Each one can harvest 10 acres a night, lifting the fruit without crushing a single berry. Metal meets moonlight, and the air fills with the scent of ripeness and diesel. For the machine operators, timing is everything. They work by GPS and sugar maps, guided by data showing exactly where the fruit has reached its perfect balance of sweetness and acidity. Harvesting at night keeps the berries cool and firm, locking in freshness before the heat of day. As the bins fill, the trucks rumble toward the wineries, where sorting tables and optical scanners wait to separate leaves from fruit, stem from grape quality from waste. In a few short hours, the raw taste of the season becomes liquid history. Across the Atlantic, dawn light brushes the terraced slopes of the Mosel River. Here there are no harvesters, no floodlights, no machines. Just people, men and women, many over 50, climbing the steep hills with baskets strapped to their backs. Each step is a negotiation between balance and gravity. Each grape is cut by hand, placed gently into wicker baskets. They speak little except to warn each other of loose stones or soft ground. To them, the rhythm of the harvest is not measured in acres per hour, but in heartbeats per vine. In Tuscany's Chianti region, the tradition feels almost sacred. The workers call it the moment of truth, because once the grapes leave the vine, there is no turning back. A wrong cut, a bruise, or too much sunlight, and months of labor can vanish into vinegar. So they move slowly, methodically, guided by generations of intuition. The first rays of sunlight spill over the hills, and the baskets begin to overflow. Within hours, tractors pull the fruit to the local cooperatives, where families and neighbors gather to press ferment and celebrate. Reveal number 1. The difference between machine and hand harvesting is staggering. A mechanical harvester can cover 5 to 10 hectares per night, finishing a field before sunrise. A hand crew would need 3 days to do the same work. But here's the paradox: when the grapes are picked by hand, the stems remain intact, oxygen exposure is lower, and the resulting wine often retains more aroma, more texture, more soul. Modern viticulture lives in this tension between speed and sensitivity, between profit and pride. Technology saves time, yet tradition saves character. And when climate change adds heat drought or wildfire smoke into the mix, that balance becomes even harder to hold. If the next few minutes can reveal anything, it's this: the future of wine will depend not only on machines or markets, but on the people who decide when the fruit is ready to fall. So, before we step into the science behind these choices, take a moment. Subscribe, stay with us, and in just a few minutes, you'll see the evidence that changed the course of modern winemaking. Behind every vineyard, behind every glass of wine, lies a map of decisions, soil, sunlight, and survival. To outsiders, a vineyard looks like order, neat rows, stretching to the horizon. But to the growers, it's a living puzzle that changes with every sunrise. Each choice begins underground. The roots of the vine reach deep, searching through layers of clay limestone and gravel for moisture that may no longer be there. In California, drip irrigation lines snake between the rows, releasing measured drops of water only where sensors say it's needed. In Europe's old hills, the vines live on memory alone, no irrigation, just faith in the sky and the stone. Here, drought is not just a season, it's a test of endurance. Above ground, the geometry of the canopy is just as crucial. Growers talk of training systems like guyot spur and vertical shoot positioning, each one a philosophy about how to balance light and air. Too much shade, and the grapes stay green and bitter. Too much sun, and the fruit bakes before it ripens. So they trim, tie, and guide each vine leaf by cluster, sculpting photosynthesis like art. Then comes the science. Small drones map the vineyard from above, analyzing chlorophyll levels to show which parcels are stressed and which are thriving. Thermal cameras detect subtle differences in leaf temperature. Spectral data transforms into maps that tell a farmer exactly which rows to harvest first. Even the sweetness of the berries, the Brix level, is tracked digitally, marking the precise hour when sugar, acid, and tannin meet in harmony. That perfect moment lasts only a few hours. A delay of one day can shift a wine's entire character from crisp and aromatic to heavy and dull. So when the data signals, readiness machines roll in like soldiers following coordinates. Every movement, vibration, speed, direction is automated, tuned to protect the fragile skin of the grape. Technology in its purest form becomes invisible service to flavor, but old winemakers still trust their senses over sensors. They taste the grapes, crush them between their fingers, smell the pulp. They listen for the quiet crackle of the seed. In those small sounds, they hear the season's story, the rain that came too late, the wind that came too early. It's an instinct no algorithm can replicate. Revealed No.2 studies show that harvesting grapes at just 1 degree of Brix difference can change the market value of a bottle by up to 5-fold. That means timing the simple decision of when to pick can be worth millions of dollars across a single region. Technology promises precision, but precision is only as good as the human judgment that interprets it. For big corporations, the machines are insurance. They can afford the sensors, the satellites, the endless data streams that keep production predictable. But for small family growers, the men and women who live among their vines, climate change has become a gambler's game. A sudden heat wave, a late frost, a wildfire miles away, each one can erase a year of income in a single night. They carry that risk quietly. And while global brands expand, small estates disappear, swallowed by consolidation. Some survive by reinventing themselves, tourism, organic, certification, boutique, vintages, but many don't. This is the invisible cost of efficiency, the people who cannot afford the technology that defines the new era. And so the question deepens, not about machines or tradition, but about survival itself. If the future of wine depends on precision, then who will be left to afford precision? Who bears the burden when nature becomes unpredictable and progress has a price? In this new climate of extremes, is it the landowners, the corporations, or the small farmers who carry the real weight of the harvest? Stay with that thought, because what comes next will show how entire regions, nations even are reshaping their identities just to keep a single fruit alive. Across the world, the grape harvest sets the rhythm of rural life, a heartbeat that rises every autumn and fades again by winter. But in recent years, that rhythm has been broken. The old calendars no longer match the new climate. In California, harvest dates creep earlier each decade. Vineyards that once began picking in late September now rush to start in early August before the heat can scorch the fruit. For growers in Napa and Sonoma, the fear is not the sun, it's the smoke. Wildfires have become the new vintage markers. One spark, one wind shift, and the flavor of an entire harvest turns to ash. Smoke taint, they call it. Invisible in the field, devastating in the bottle. Across the ocean in southern Spain, the problem is not fire, but thirst. Water tables are falling. The sun beats down longer each year, bleaching the color from the grapes, concentrating sugar, but erasing acidity. Wines that were once bright and balanced now taste heavy, tired, older than their years. Some growers have started replanting on higher ground, chasing cooler air, like exiles moving uphill. In France, tradition meets defiance. Producers in Bordeaux and Burgundy regions, defined by centuries of rules, are petitioning the government to allow new heat-resistant grape varieties. Names that would once have been Heresy, Touriga, Marcelin, Arenar Noah are now quietly being tested. For the French, the decision cuts deep. Change the grape and you change the identity of the wine, yet doing nothing could mean extinction. Reveal, Serber 3. In just the last 20 years, the average harvest window in Europe has shifted by 17 days earlier, while the average alcohol content of red wines has risen by 1.5% due to faster sugar accumulation. It's not just a statistic, it's a sign that the planet itself is rewriting the flavor of wine. But while science debates, the people on the ground carry on. Meet Maria. She's 62, a seasonal worker in La Rioja, Spain. Her hands are darkened by years of sun and tannin. Every harvest season, she joins a small crew that picks grapes for one of the region's oldest family wineries. When asked why she still prefers to harvest by hand, she smiles because the vines speak to us. You can feel which cluster is ready and which one still dreams. Maria represents thousands like her workers, whose knowledge is unrecorded, whose intuition bridges centuries of experience. But their numbers are shrinking. Younger generations leave the countryside for cities, and the vineyards grow silent except for the hum of machines. Without them, the human touch that once defined European wine may vanish. Meanwhile, international investors see opportunity. Corporate vineyards in Chile, Australia, and South Africa are expanding using advanced machinery and irrigation to meet rising global demand. To them, wine is data predictable, scalable, exportable. For smaller growers, survival depends on storytelling. They brand their bottles not by region, but by heritage, family-grown, hand-picked old vines. It's nostalgia as a business model. In the United States, consumers over 50, those who remember the romance of vineyards and the intimacy of tasting rooms, are now the industry's backbone. They buy fewer bottles, but better ones. They value connection over convenience, authenticity over automation. This shift is reshaping the market: fewer cheap labels, more single vineyard wines, more curiosity about where and how the grapes are grown. The paradox deepens. Technology allows precision, but emotion still drives value. A sensor may tell you when a grape is ripe, but it can't tell you why it matters. And that's where the future trembles. Because even as the world's harvest becomes more efficient, more mechanical, the people behind it grow fewer each year. The question is no longer whether machines can replace hands they already have. The question is whether the world will care when the hands are gone. Loop D. As the planet warms, fires spread, and labor disappears, can the vineyards that once defined culture and identity still survive? Or are we witnessing the slow unraveling of a tradition built over 2,000 years? Stay with us. The answer may come not from the vineyards themselves, but from the ashes of those already lost. In the summer of 2020, smoke rolled over Northern California like a second sunset. From the hills of Sonoma to the edges of Napa vineyards stood under a copper sky silent, except for the hiss of ash falling on leaves. For days, no one knew what the damage would be. The grapes looked perfect, intact, ripe, untouched. But inside, microscopic smoke particles had entered the skins, binding invisibly to sugars and tannins. When the wine was finally pressed, it carried the taste of burning wood and bitterness. Entire vintages worth millions were destroyed without a single flame touching the vines. Half a world away in southern France, the story echoed differently, but with the same heartbreak. A single hailstorm in 2021 cut through vineyards like glass-shredding leaves, bruising clusters, stripping away months of labor in 15 minutes. Insurance didn't cover it. No one could. The economics are brutal. A vineyard that once produced bottles selling for $50 apiece can lose its identity overnight. Land values collapse, families are forced to sell, and waiting quietly in the background are the investors. Global corporations, private equity funds, even luxury conglomerates step in buying the land at a fraction of its worth. They bring their machines, their efficiency, their algorithms. In a single decade, the top 5 wine groups have come to control nearly 40% of Europe's vineyard acreage. At first glance, it seems like salvation, fresh capital, better equipment, new technology. But look closer and the cost becomes clear. Old vines are ripped out to make room for higher-yield hybrids. Local workers are replaced by seasonal contractors. Wines that once carried the signature of a valley now taste identical across continents. And so the paradox deepens, nature wipes the slate clean. Capital decides what gets replanted. In this tug-of-war, something ancient is quietly disappearing, not just vineyards, but the idea that wine is a conversation between land and people. The world's oldest Cabernet vines, planted in 1836 in Australia's Barossa Valley, were nearly destroyed when a foreign investment firm attempted to bulldoze the property for development. Public outcry stopped it, but only barely. If heritage can be bought and sold, if even ancient vines can be priced and traded, what happens when the next fire, the next storm, or the next investor arrives? Is the soul of wine still in the soil, or has it already moved to the balance sheet? Stay with us, because the truth that comes next may change how you see every bottle you've ever opened. When disaster strikes, it rarely announces itself. It arrives quietly on the wind in the clouds or in the market reports. But after the fires, the hail, and the buyouts, something unexpected began to happen in the world's vineyards. Technology, once blamed for the loss of authenticity, started to become a tool of preservation. In California's scorched valleys, researchers built sensors capable of detecting smoke molecules within the grape skin before they became flavor-active. Growers now use portable analysis kits that read the chemical signature of fruit in real time. If contamination appears, they pick earlier change fermentation methods or divert the grapes to make spirits instead of wine. Losses that once reached millions can now be contained in hours. Machines once symbols of destruction have become shields against the chaos of nature. In France, engineers developed drones with infrared cameras to detect heat stress and dehydration before the vines even show symptoms. The same vineyards that suffered catastrophic losses a decade ago now react in advance, adjusting irrigation shading rows with biodegradable nets or spraying a fine mist of clay particles to reflect sunlight. For them, precision agriculture is no longer a luxury, it's survival. But the revolution doesn't end with sensors and drones. New optical sorting lines inside the wineries can analyze up to 10,000 grapes per second, using AI to detect color size and even microscopic blemishes invisible to the human eye. Healthy berries fall into one bin, damaged ones into another. In a single pass, the machine performs the work of an entire sorting crew without fatigue, without error. Reveal number 4 wineries that integrated these systems have reported an average 18% increase in flavor consistency and 22% reduction in oxidation losses, leading to a net productivity gain of nearly 30% per vintage. The same technology that once threatened jobs is now saving businesses and the landscapes they inhabit. Still, not everyone is convinced. Critics say that mechanization strips wine of its soul, that a machine cannot feel terroir, cannot taste wind or memory. They argue that wine made by algorithms will all taste the same predictable, emotionless commercial. But let's pause on that thought. Because terroir, the sacred French word for sense of place, is not a machine, a grape, or even a soil type. It's a conversation between people and nature, between decision and consequence. Machines do not erase that dialogue. They amplify it. They make it measurable, visible, repeatable. The art remains human, the timing of the pick, the blending, the aging, the philosophy. Take the small cooperative in Saint-Emilion, where old growers and young engineers work side by side. The elders walk the rows, marking vines with colored ribbons to signal which blocks will be hand-picked. The younger ones follow behind, programming the harvesters to skip those ribbons and focus only on the rest. Together, they harvest 10 times faster than before, but the grapes destined for their grand cru remain untouched by steel. It's not a compromise. It's a collaboration. Even large corporations have begun to adapt. In Italy, one major wine group now employs a dual harvest model machines, gather 85% of the crop for mid-range wines, while trained crews handle the remaining 15% for premium labels. The result is balanced profit without the sacrifice of prestige. Technology pays the bills. Craftsmanship defines the legacy. So maybe the real threat isn't the machines, it's the mindset that sees progress and heritage as opposites. The most resilient vineyards are those that have learned to merge the two. And yet, as global demand grows, new questions emerge. Who owns this data? The soil sensors, the satellite imagery, the fermentation analytics, do they belong to the farmer or the software provider? When a vineyard's future depends on data stored in a cloud server, sovereignty takes on a new meaning. If the knowledge of the land, the secret rhythms of growth and ripening now lives in algorithms, who truly owns the vineyard, the person who tends it, or the system that knows it better? That's the paradox we'll face next, because as technology safeguards tradition, it also claims power over it. And the next part of our story will explore how people are fighting to reclaim control over the very roots of their heritage. The story of wine has always been one of survival across wars, plagues, and droughts. But now, survival demands reinvention. Across the world, a quiet movement is reshaping how vineyards live, breathe, and pass their legacy forward. In the hills of the Mosel River, Germany, Thomas Weber tends to his vines as his father did before him. He's 58 now, silver-haired hands calloused by 50 harvests. His vineyard sits on a steep slope that no machine can climb. Every cluster must still be cut by hand, every basket carried on his back down to the river road below. It's back-breaking work, but Thomas has learned to use technology not as a replacement, but as an ally. He checks the soil moisture on his phone each morning, data collected by tiny probes buried among the roots. A small solar-powered pump releases just enough water to keep the vines alive through the new, harsher summers. On the gentler, lower slopes, he rents a shared harvester with 2 neighboring families. The machine does in one night what once took them 3 days, freeing their time for what he calls the art parts blending barrel work storytelling. When asked what keeps him going, he says quietly, "I use the machines to pay the bills and my hands to remember who we are." Thomas is part of a new generation of old growers farmers who accept technology without surrendering identity. They're creating models that balance economy, ecology, and emotion. Across Europe and the United States, cooperatives are re-emerging. Instead of competing small estates, now pool resources, shared machines, shared cold storage, shared marketing. Each keeps its label, but gains the strength of scale. For aging farmers, it means survival. For younger ones, a reason to return home. Governments, too, are beginning to recognize the value of tradition. In France, regional councils have created heritage vine grants to preserve old vineyards deemed culturally significant. In Italy, local universities run programs where retired vintners mentor young winemakers in sensory training, passing down intuition that no machine can replicate. In California, research centers pair AI tools with biodiversity goals, using data to replant wildflowers and grasses that stabilize soil and attract pollinators. Each of these acts, small as they seem, is a piece of a larger puzzle, a global attempt to keep wine human. Reveal, number 5. Since 2022, several major wine regions have begun issuing digital origin passports, blockchain-based records that certify every detail of a bottle's journey, grape variety, harvest date, vineyard, GPS, winemaker identity. It's more than transparency. It's traceable heritage. For consumers, it builds trust. For farmers, it protects authenticity from imitation. A single scan tells you not just where the wine was made, but who made it and how. And yet beneath this progress lies a quiet unease. The average age of a European winemaker is now 56. In the U.S., it's 54. Younger generations drawn to cities and digital careers see little future in the fields. Vineyards without heirs are being sold piece by piece to corporations or converted into tourist attractions. Thomas looks across his valley and sighs. When I was young, he says every house on this hill had someone in the vines. Now there are only 5 of us left. The machines will keep the grapes alive, but who will keep the stories alive? That question echoes across continents. Because wine is more than agriculture, it's memory family ritual. It's the way people over 50 taste not just fruit, but time itself. If that lineage breaks, no machine, no algorithm, no blockchain can restore it. Loop. F. So what happens when the next generation no longer wants to inherit the land? Can technology and heritage alone sustain a culture if there are no hands left to pass it on? Stay with us because the final moments of this story will look beyond the vineyard to what the fate of wine says about our shared future. As the sun sets over the vineyards, the land exhales. You can almost hear it, the sigh of roots cooling after another season of struggle. For centuries, this ritual has repeated itself, pruning, flowering, ripening, harvest, rest. Yet today, that rhythm feels fragile. The challenges are new, but the spirit remains the same. Every cluster of grapes tells 3 stories. One of place, the soil, the river, the wind that shaped it. One of people, the hands, the choices, the patience behind each bottle. And one of time, the memory of all those who came before, distilled into a single taste. Technology, for all its power, cannot replace those stories, but it can preserve them if we use it with purpose. It can guard vines from drought-track authenticity and help families like Thomas's keep their land. It can make sure the next glass you raise still carries the truth of the earth beneath it. But here's the twist. As the old generation fades, the future of wine will not be decided by machines or even by markets. It will be decided by memory. By whether we still care enough to remember why these traditions mattered in the first place. A new report shows that by 2040, nearly 1/3 of Europe's heritage vineyards may disappear if no successors are found. And if that happens, wine as we know it, its stories, its places, its soul, will become just another product, not a legacy. So tonight, as we close this journey, ask yourself, what will the vineyards of the future taste like, data or devotion? Because in the end, wine is not about grapes. It's about gratitude. A toast to the hands that picked them, to the machines that protected them, and to the people like you who still care enough to listen. If you believe heritage deserves a future, subscribe and ring the bell. Raise your glass. Stay curious and remember, we toast to integrity.